Hello, everyone. Amanda Levesque here, and I'm going to be sharing a little bit about intuition today. I'm going to be talking about what it is, what the benefits are, where it might live in the body, as well as how we could access it. I love this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. I think most of us are intrigued by it, and some of us have really embraced it in our lives. The definition of intuition is knowing or understanding something without reasoning or proof of it. So it's this hit that we get. Like, we'll just be going about our daily lives, and then all of a sudden it seems to magically land like a little piece of gold in our mind or in our body. And in that moment, we can either choose to follow it and to trust it and to treat it as something that's valuable, or we can ignore it. And so some of us kind of ignore it or push it down, and some of us follow that little golden trail. And I think, over time, if we ignore our intuition, it starts to show itself less and less. Whereas if we follow it and we treat it as something that is worthy of us paying attention to, then it will continue to gift us with understanding and with insight. So there's three different aspects of intuition according to a nonprofit organization called the HeartMath Institute. And the HeartMath Institute studies the powerful effects of the human heart, which we'll get to a little bit later in this video. But the three aspects to intuition are: one, energetic. So this feeling of someone is staring at me right now, and I know that they are, like I can feel that someone's staring at me. Or some people are really sensitive to shifts in the weather. They might get like a headache as the energy of weather patterning starts to spiral towards them. This is quite literally energetic. And when I say energy, think of the nervous system has electricity running through the body, quite literally electricity, which forms a magnetic field around the body. Just like electricity runs through a wire and a magnetic field is formed around the wire, this is true for the body as well. So when we can feel each other, without seeing each other through that magnetic field, through the energy of it. The second would be somatic-wise, intuition being we are a collection of all of the experiences throughout our life. And those experiences and that learning and that insight lives in our body somewhere beyond our conscious recognition, beyond our conscious processing. So when there's a situation and our intuition says to do something, it could be a collection of all of that lived experience in our body and our brain that we don't quite have this, I'm consciously pulling it from this memory and this experience that we should compute to doing this. But there's a part of you that knows on a subconscious level that this certain decision would be the best one for you. The third form of intuition is non-local. And this is the most mysterious one in my opinion, but an example would be when you're thinking of someone and they pick up the phone and call you. Or a lot of times parents, they're really connected to their children, especially mothers, and they can feel that their child needs them. They can just feel something's up and they act accordingly. Non-local intuition is an idea that we're all connected to each other by some grid or field, and we're all communicating to each other in some way. This is very much the magic to the science, and I like to let my mind flow here because I think many of us have had an experience like this that just seems so synchronistic and so unexplained that we acknowledge it and we don't quite know how to explain it, but it's a part of the human experience. Why intuition? What's it gonna give me? Why is it important? I think there's many reasons, but the two main ones I'll talk about in this video is one, it's really, really important for career, and two, I find that there's more ease in relationships with the development of intuition. How intuition plays a role in my career is that I move from body awareness, and I think intuition is tied in with body awareness. When making a big decision, I don't necessarily sit and strategize a lot. I'm not drawing a Venn diagram and mapping out all the pros and cons and where they overlap. Now, this is definitely a way to go about big decisions, and it's a more logical, rational way. But I find that when I follow my heart, or when something comes through naturally, like as I'm driving or as I'm taking a shower or as I'm practicing yoga, those insights tend to propel me forward in a way that's more focused and clearer and more direct than this really active trying to brainstorm, trying to reason, trying to list out. That doesn't feel as delicious. It feels like more like striving. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that way. We are in many ways living in a society that operates with that being the only way of making big decisions, is really from this logical place, from this brain mental space. These really big decisions, they come through us. And I spoke a bit about this in my video about creativity. I think there's some overlap. But when we think of intuition, they're almost little droplets of information given the right environment that we're in. When we're able to lower our brainwave frequency, we receive powerful insights about what next steps we should take in our career, or what should be said at this next business meeting, or what I should write for this email. Versus if we sit and try to force it from a place of logic and reason, it comes out a bit choppier most times. So when we can figure out a way to connect to and create space for our intuition, we will have a clearer, more influential path on our career. Second, there's more ease in our relationships. If I'm approaching a conversation, especially with clients, and I'm trying to be logical and have reason with how I'm sharing my insights with them or how I'm listening, then the conversation tends to be kind of choppy. Again, that would be the way I describe it, like choppy, maybe brittle, sensation-wise. Whereas if I come to it from a place of intuition, like what is just coming into my mind, coming through my body, what's coming into my heart, my gut, and trusting that and sharing that, then there's more of a resonance between whoever I'm talking to, whether it be a client, whether it be my friend, whether it be my mom. If I trust this body knowing that's coming through and share that, then there's more compassion almost. And I think there's more heart, for lack of a better word. And I'm going to talk about the heart in a second. But that intuition of this is what I should say, or I'm sensing this is what this person is feeling, or I'm reading into this, I'm noticing this in their tone or this in their face. All of this stuff kind of happens without our conscious reasoning. We're not like, oh, this eyebrow raised and this facial expression was made, so I should respond to this. And see how that's really clunky? Like we're computing a bunch of information and then sending it out, versus just trusting that the body has over time gathered information about human expression and human voice tone, and we can listen to that and respond to that from a place of not quite knowing logically why we're saying what we're saying, only that it feels right. We're tapping into feeling. That is the most important thing with intuition. What's it like to feel something and to trust it without logically understanding why? Very, very hard for a lot of people, but the benefits within clearing our path in our career, within easing our relationships, within clearing the path of our lives are immense. How do we access it? So I think before I get into that, I want to share where I think that intuition lives in the body. I find that intuition lives in the heart space for me. And I think really intuition is a body up experience. So it could live in a different organ of the body or anywhere else. There's no right or wrong way to experience intuition. So many people aren't aware of this, but the heart actually contains 40,000 neurons. It has its own little cluster of neurons. And it can kind of think and operate on its own without input from the brain. Here's the interesting part, and I'll get into this like probably in a different video, but the heart, of the connection between the heart and the brain, all of the connections, the neural patterning, 90% of the nerves that connect the heart to the brain go from the heart to the brain rather than the other way around. So that means that the heart is sharing a lot more information to the brain than the brain to the heart. This is incredible. The heart has its own intelligence. And the Heart Math Institute, which I mentioned earlier, studies this intelligence. And I find that when I drop my attention down into my heart, when I speak from my heart, when I simply acknowledge that my heart is here and I feel my energy in my heart, that I feel more in alignment. It's a different sort of wisdom. And this may seem a little far out for you because we're such a head-centered society. So when we think of thinking, we often think of thinking just from the skull, from the brain and the skull. But what's it like to think with the heart? Also, I mentioned electricity running through the heart, through the body. Electricity occurs in the heart from the heart beating. That is a lot of electricity, while the magnetic field around the heart can be measured 60 times the amplitude of the magnetic field of the brain. This is amazing. So that means that the heart's energy extends out in all directions, all around the body, in a way further capacity than the area of the brain. When we think of intuition, of connecting into a field of knowing, the heart has a greater access to that. And it may not make logical sense because the heart's intelligence isn't always logical. Another area of the body where I think that intuition might live is in the gut. The gut has millions of neurons and quite literally a system that operates independently of the top-down feedback from the brain. It is referred to as the enteric nervous system. But I think more instinct lives here, which I think is a little different than intuition. When you think of like a gut level response, that comes from the gut, whereas intuition is a softer, more emotional based feedback into the body and from the body. So connecting into the gut, same thing. You just drop your attention into the gut and you acknowledge that there's a system there that can think. Sometimes I'll even place my hand on my heart and my hand on my gut and kind of listen in. Both instinct and intuition can come in really fast, I think. That is their beauty, is that it's this knowledge or this insight or this feeling that we get that's quick and immediate. And that's why I think oftentimes we question it, because we think big decisions need to be given the time. But that's not always true. Sometimes we need time to process. Sometimes the answers can be easy and they can come from within the gut or from within the heart. I know several of you are into human design, and your authority, your emotional authority would be, not emotional authority, your authority would be what you would use for that intuitive response. So for example, mine is my spleen, and I've been doing some work to connect into my spleen, quite literally feeling it, knowing where it's at in the body, and then as I hold my attention there, seeing what information just comes into my conscious awareness, not from my brain, but from my body. So if you're into human design, you could check your chart, see where in your body is your authority, and start playing around with, does intuition live there? Again, intuition being something of knowing or understanding without having any reasoning or proof of why it's coming up. We can access this space by connecting to these places in the body and playing with kind of where and what, and then learning to listen to them. So over time, this is a lot of what I work with my clients on. You can meditate in the area of the heart. You can do a heart-centered meditation, and I do have that on my meditation album. You can also hold the energy in the heart. This is what I'm doing as I'm sharing right now, and I'll often do it as I'm presenting. If I'm nervous, if I'm having a conversation that's really hard, I hold the awareness into my heart, which just means that I know that it's there as I'm sharing. I'm staying connected to my body by way of my heart. You can do the same thing with the gut. Drop the attention into the gut and hold the awareness there, and just notice what happens as you hold the awareness in this space while being in whatever situation you're in. You might contemplate these places, so you could rather than being with them as you're conversing or presenting or doing an activity, you could sit and meditate with them. Hold the awareness there, see what arises. Practice listening. You could also stimulate these energy centers or the body by practicing yoga or doing movement. Anything that will help you be more in your body and practice the art of listening will help these spaces offer you more information. Just like I like to compare the body to a friend sometimes, because let's say that you had a friend that wasn't listening to you and you were sharing, you'd probably stop sharing with them because what's the point? I'm sharing, but I'm not being heard. It's, your friend's distracted. Well, the same thing with our bodies. If we don't have an open ears in our consciousness to listen to the body, if we always prioritize the mind, this part of the body, I don't like to say it's separate from the body, but the brain and the skull, if we only prioritize this topmost part of the body, the rest of the body won't necessarily keep sharing information with us. So it's the practice of listening, and it can be as much of a commitment as doing a full yoga practice every single day, contemplating an energy center. It could be just dropping your attention and awareness to there throughout the day as you move through your tasks. Also, something to consider is creating soothing circumstances for yourself. I've done a few videos on how to move the body out of survival into a state of creativity and why that's important. But it's hard for intuition to come through when we're in a state of survival because we're just so focused on the present moment of how to literally make sure that our physical bodies survive whatever threat is around us. That bigger picture intuitive insights probably won't come through. It's not really the time and place for that. Our chemistry is too focused on reacting to the threat at hand, to getting us through the moment. This is where instinct might come in, that gut instinct of like, how do I respond to this exact moment? Whereas intuition feels like it's more bigger picture oriented, and that can come through the area of the heart. In closing, intuition and instinct can really help to create a clearer path for our careers, for our relationships and how our relationships progress, and for our lives in general. There is an immense amount of wisdom that lives under the surface of the skin in the body, and that wisdom wants to share itself with us. This is what I offer within my coaching, within my programs. It is one of my favorite things ever to hold space and structure and insight to help people connect to the wisdom of their bodies. Because when we do that, we're not moving through the world from a place of our conditioning, what we've grown up to think is right for us, and making decisions from that place. We're really moving through life from our unique inner wisdom. And when we do that, when we connect with that, everything else will align. Things will become clearer. The body has so much to tell us, so much. And I would love to work with you. If you have any questions, my email is down below along with a bunch of links. I hope you have such an amazing day. This cat that keeps playing with me as I'm doing the video hopes that you have a wonderful day too. Goodbye.